If you didn't know, Jay-Z is somebody who got his money initially from selling drugs, stabbing people, right? And he'll even brag about it. As recently as 5 years ago, he makes a PSA sort of video 7 years ago as if he's some sort of wisecrack. And he's going to go around basically blaming the government for the reason why he sold crack, okay? Let's see what he actually does to rationalize such stupidity.
In 1986, when I was coming of age, Ronald Reagan doubled down on the war on drugs that had been started by Richard Nixon in 1971. Drugs were bad, fried your brain, and drug dealers were monsters. The sole reason neighborhoods and major cities were failing. No one wanted to talk about Reaganomics and the ending of social safety nets.
Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. He's trying to pass this off to a bunch of high schoolers or something, saying like, oh, it's Reagan's fault that these sort of societies are falling down. These societies that honestly didn't have a right to exist to begin with, these fucking welfare leeches are talking about how they are, in particular, going to be victims of how the social safety net was depleted. If you know anything about anything politically, and I know Jay-Z doesn't, he's a fucking dick, what you have to deal with is the fact that spending has gone up virtually nonstop for 50 years straight. What that means is that Ronald Reagan did not deplete the social welfare state at all. In fact, it was Bill Clinton that reduced it even a little bit in 1995. So for this nonsense to be promulgated by some fucking wisecrack billionaire black 50-year-old dude to not have figured it out at this point, it's just appallingly dumb. And now he's going to pass this off as if the safety net was depleted. How? Spending only went up under Reagan. Facts are real. And guess what? Oh, they're all monsters selling drugs. Yes, it's actually really shitty for you to do that. Of course. What? Okay, let's see how he spins this.
The funding of schools and the loss of jobs in cities across America. Young men like me who hustled became the sole villain, and drug addicts lack moral fortitude.
What's the problem with that? Yes, you're a villain. You are selling drugs to your own fucking people. It'd be one thing if you were selling your drugs to some meth head in Ohio. You could say, well, those aren't my people. But you're literally going to your auntie, you're going to your cousin, and you're selling them dope. And you're making money off of that. Not because you worked in the yard like my grandparents did. Not because you mowed somebody's lawn like Juan. No, you're going around here, Tyrone, selling crack to Shaniqua. And you're what? Oh, I'm not a monster. I'm just a victim of my circumstances. No, fuck you. Fuck you, you scumbag. Really? Are you kidding me? And then what's better than this? You've got this guy blaming the government, saying that he's the villain. Yes, you're the villain. You're taking a shortcut. Well, I was really broke. Dude, so is everybody else, you fucking asshole. But guess what they're not doing? Selling drugs. That's the fucking easy way out. Are you kidding me? And best than that. Okay, so basically, your situation's tough. Well, how about every fucking junkie you're giving it to? These drugs, they have it harder than you because they're broke and stupid like you, but they actually don't even have the willpower to stop taking drugs. But okay, the government is at fault. Oh, yeah. Okay. You know, it's not black community issues. No, it's literally just the fucking white government. Okay, great.
In the 1990s, incarceration rates in the U.S. blew up. Today, we imprison more people than any other country in the world. China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. All
Okay, here's the thing though. The incarcerations went up and the crime went down. So what is the complaint here? What is the complaint? There is no valid complaint here. And what's even better than that, of course, is the fact that we're dealing with somebody in Jay-Z who endorsed Hillary Clinton for president in 2016. Let's not get it fucking twisted. Is going to say that incarceration went up. Well, what administration did that, genius? Oh, Bill Clinton. Okay, 1996 crime bill or whatever. Okay, under Joe Biden as well, by the way, in the Senate. Okay, so who's this genius? And by the way, that was a great thing. The three strikes you're out rule, all that, awesome. Minimum mandatory sentences, great. But for him to cast aspersions to say we have more incarcerated people than China, Russia, Iran, or Cuba. Well, I mean, you'd prefer to live here, smartass, right? And again, with this notion of we have so many people locked up compared to other countries, yeah, because we have a different demography, genius. For instance, okay, well, these other Western countries don't have as many criminals in jail. Well, they don't have as many criminals, right? Norway, Sweden, Finland, they don't have Baltimore populations. They don't have urban people. They don't have Jay-Z's. They don't have Jay-Z's circa 1986, okay? Selling crack like a fucking bum, okay? So, of course, they're not going to have as many people in jail, all right? Because they don't have minorities selling crack to other fucking minorities and saying that they're not the monsters, when in reality, they're the fucking scum of the earth. If you're selling drugs to your own people, you are beneath the dirt. But this guy is gonna have the fucking gall to lecture some fucking bureaucrat as if it's their fault.
Countries we consider autocratic and repressive. Yeah, more than them. Judges' hands were tied by tough on crime laws, and they were forced to hand out mandatory life sentences for simple possession and low-level drug sales.
Okay, this is more populist nonsense. Oh, it was the judges that were hung up. Okay, so you're saying that the judges, which were mostly white people, especially 30 years ago when they would have been more racist, these judges, think about it. You're a 7-year-old white judge in 1992. What, now because Bill Clinton told you to be more strict, you're going to be more strict? No, these people clearly agreed with the minimum mandatory standard procedures, right? These judges were more or less in concordance with the establishment at the time, hence why they're in the fucking deep-rooted government as judges for the districts. Like, what the hell is wrong with Jay-Z saying this, man? Holy shit.
My home state of New York started this with Rockefeller laws. Then the feds made distinctions between people who sold powder cocaine and crack cocaine, even though they were the same drug. Only difference is how you take it. And even
Well, that is an important difference. Why is that? And people will say this, black people will say this often. They'll be like, oh, white kids, when they do weed, the same rate that black kids do, black kids end up in jail more. Well, guess why? Because people don't search you for weed. Usually they get the weed while you're doing a DUI. They get the weed while you're in a gunfight and they find your backpack and they find weed in it, okay? People are not really policing marijuana, especially 10 years ago when the video was made. Instead, what they're doing is they're having a ton of felony-laden people, and then they get a weed charge because they just so happen to have that. Whereas white people don't commit as many crimes as blacks, and so therefore, they don't get as many weed charges. Oh, but the white kid in the suburb is not going to jail for weed. Yeah, but the black kid isn't going to jail for weed. He's going to jail for Grand Theft Auto and then the weed he happened to have in his back pocket as well. It's just a coincidence at that point. So just don't commit as much crime, and there isn't an issue. Okay? Okay? Frankly. And again, you know what breaks all these fucking stereotypes, by the way? Nigerian blacks, darker than a fucking Michelin tire. Do they go to jail as much as African Americans? No, they don't. So, but it's my skin color, man. It's not my fault, dog. Well, guess what, bitch? What about your cousin from Niger? What about your cousin from Chad, from Cote d'Ivoire, or Senegal? These people aren't going to fucking jail as much, even as compared to white people. I mean, they're pretty clean, no? But, oh, God forbid. Anyway, just a complete load of shit. And in regards to this differentiation in the sentencing guidelines for cocaine and crack, there's a huge difference, okay? Take the average guy taking coke. It's going to be your Patrick Bateman. It's going to be some 45-year-old stockbroker who has a secretary on the side that he bangs, and he's a scumbag, but I mean, he's efficient for the economy. And it's like usurious sort of like pseudo-capitalist infrastructure that we live in. That makes sense. That guy is not taking needles under a fucking streetlight in front of an elementary school. But you know who is doing that? These fucking the smackheads. These people. So yes, is it discriminatory? Yeah, but it's for valid reasons. Cocaine users are just not as disruptive to the general society as our crack users. That's just fucking common sense. So yeah, the drug is the same, but the way you use them is very different. Okay? If you take a gun, like a fucking rifle, a 22 rifle, the average person that uses that is benign. If you take a 22 pistol, odds are that somebody's gonna be gangbanging with that shit, okay? So you might say, well, the police obsessing over the pistol that's the same caliber as the rifle is just discriminatory. But in reality, the hillbilly with the 22 is really not the problem, okay? And the stockbroker in New York smoking or inhaling cocaine is really not the problem here. It's going to be the crackhead and the crack dealer, okay?
even though white people used and sold crack more than black people, somehow it was black people who went to prison. The media ignored actual data to this day. Crack is still talked about as a black problem. The NYPD raided our Brooklyn neighborhoods while Manhattan bankers openly used coke with impunity. The war on drugs exploded.
Well, isn't that kind of the difference, no? You can have all these bankers doing coke, and they operate at a higher level than these black people in jail addicted to crack, doing jack shit, going outside of Jack in the Box, taking a shit in the dumpster. Oh, no, but it's the bankers that are the problem. Maybe they are actually low-key, but not for the reasons you think.
The U.S. prison population disproportionately locking away black and Latinos. Our prison population grew more than 900%. When the war on drugs began in 1971, our prison population was 200,000. Today it is over 2 million.
Okay, but that doesn't include the fact that there's more drug users now, dumbass. Clearly, bro. Who was taking drugs in the 50s? Get real for a fucking second. Seriously. Where was the crack in the 50s? Genius. Oh, but it only went up in the 70s and the 80s. Well, what was that? Fucking crack. Retard.
Long after the crack era ended, we continued our war on drugs. There were more than 1.5 million drug arrests in 2014. More than 80% were for possession only. Almost half were for marijuana.
Okay, what would the other thing be? Oh, it's mostly possession. What else would you be arrested for? Selling it? Well, yeah, 20% of people that were arrested under drug charges were dealers. So, yeah, that makes sense, right? For every dealer, there's like 5 users. What's the. But he presents that factoid as if it's like an own. How? Again, this works on dumb high school kids. These fucking, I imagine some 15-year-old, 85 IQ Puerto Rican kid in Manhattan. Oh man, essay. Oh man, this guy, Jay, man, I like his album, man. No, he's right, man. Fuck the cops. No, retard. Cops are right on this issue.
People are finally talking about treating addiction to harder drugs as a health crisis, but there's no compassionate language about drug dealers. Unless, of course, we're talking about places like Colorado, whose state economy.
Bro, there's no compassionate lines of support for drug dealers. Wake up. Wake the fuck up. What? Are you kidding me?
Got a huge boost by the above ground marijuana industry. A few states south in Louisiana.
No, they didn't. Colorado is fake news, bro. If you look into it, they raised revenues from marijuana taxes, yes, but they also increased the expenditures by the state government by like triple. So basically, what they did was, okay, we made an extra dollar in revenue, so we're gonna spend another $3. So it's like if you got a $10,000 raise in your salary job, and then you increase your expenses by 30 grand. Oh, but we made a lot more. Yeah, but you spent even worse. Oh no, but oh, that's great. So again, this narrative only works if you're fucking stupid, biased towards one side, and only get half of the truth.
They're still handing out mandatory sentences for people who sell weed. Despite a booming and celebrated 50 billion legal marijuana industry, most states still disproportionately.
You are so stupid. Okay, first of all, let's say that the government did actually net money from drug users. That is fucking gay. No, because think about it. Think about it for a second. Okay, so we made $15 billion from selling weed. Well, guess what? That 50 billion could have been spent by these family people on anything more productive. And you know what the fact is that, oh, well, they would have spent it on drug dealers. First of all, probably not, but even if they did, I mean, that still isn't the onus of the government. Just because there's a lesser evil to be had doesn't mean that you ought to break your principle in regards to the law. And so this sort of argumentation of we're profiting off of this like sinful action is fucking stupid.
Hand out mandatory sentences to black and Latinos with drug cases. If you're entrepreneurial and live in one of the many states that are passing legalized laws, you may still face barriers participating in the above ground economy. Venture capitalists migrate to these states to open multi-billion-dollar operations, but former felons can't open a dispensary. Lots of times those felonies were drug charges, caught by poor people who sold drugs for a living, but are now prohibited from participating in one of the fastest growing.
Okay, again, another cope. Felons aren't that big of a population. To say that if felons were able to own businesses, that would change shit is ridiculous. Why? Well, think about it. How many black people, and the implication is black people, he is black, okay? How many black people own businesses? Definitely a fraction of the percentage of white people. Okay, now, what percentage of felons own businesses in general? A smaller fraction than that. Okay, so you're telling me that let's say 10% of white people own a business. Okay, 2% of black people own a business. Okay, now what percent of black felons could even theoretically own a business if they were allowed to? Like maybe 1/4% of the aggregate population could do that. Okay, so what big deal is that then? Well, there could have been like 3 dispensaries per state owned by a former black felon. Dude, that's not going to change shit, Jay-Z, economically. And again, he's a billionaire. He doesn't even figure that shit out. But it's me, who's broke, that actually knows that. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Economies. Got it? In states like New York, where holding marijuana is no longer grounds for arrest, police issue possession citations in black and Latino neighborhoods at a far higher rate than other neighborhoods. Kids in Crown Heights are
Because that is where the crime is. If you literally take all the minorities in New York, that accounts for over 90% of the violent crime in New York. Like actually, like it's fucking insane. Like if you remove Jews, Asians, and whites, there goes only 10% of the violent crime. 90% it's like Dominicans, blacks, Haitians, Puerto Ricans, whatever. It's a mess in New York. Of course, they're going to get more citations because these people are more criminal. They're poor. It makes sense. Okay. And New York is falling to shit regardless.
Constantly stopped and ticketed for trees. Kids at dorms in Colombia with rates of marijuana use are equal to or worse than those in the hood are never targeted or ticketed. Rates of
Yes, but okay, think about it. Some fucking 21-year-old guy on the swim team in Yale smoking pot. That is a way more stable person than some fucking black like a felon basically. And so you have to assume, why are they getting arrested? It isn't because they're smoking pot. It's because they're getting arrested for something else. And then on top of that, they have weed. And so they just add that to the charges. That is it. It's not like, oh, let me search you for weed. Maybe during stop and frisk that was happening, but overall that isn't the prevailing issue.
drug use are as high as they were when Nixon declared the so-called war in 1971. 45 years later, it's time to rethink our policies and laws. The war on drugs is an epic fail.
Cope, and seethe, bro. Cope and fucking seethe. So I mean, as you guys can see, Jay-Z's just completely felt it. He's just lying his ass off. And you know what? Shame on him, because not only is he going to use the statute of limitations to brag about how he would fucking kill people or whatever have you during drug deals gone wrong 25 years ago, but then he'll say, there's no sympathy for me, the drug dealer. No, fuck you. You're a scumbag. If you sold drugs to dozens, if not hundreds of people, you basically directly ruin their fucking lives, and for money, and for what? So you can buy Lambos, and so that you can buy paintings and brag about it on your fucking album, so that you can date Beyonce who doesn't get wet for you because you're fucking ugly, or for what? So like, really, Jay-Z, this fucking scumbag, supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. All you need to know, folks. Genius, by the way. Fuck you. Adios.